And then we had a 9 and a 10-year-old to come and live with us.
We adopted her 2 younger sisters.
So that was a big, and I think that's what I was talking about in that part. That was from something else. That was everything about our life. Was we were in Germany, we were making a lot of money, we were out of debt, everything was great. Our life was just sailing along with our little baby. And then my mother got murdered.
Hey, fam, what's going on, baby? It's your boy, Kevin and
Tanya.
Hey, man, we're coming to you guys with another episode, man. This is going to be fire tonight, baby.
Fire.
So we got an amazing couple, man, coming on to the podcast tonight. Check it out. Y'all might already know these people, man.
They're celebrities.
They're doing big things, man. They're doing big things already, man. So without further delay, man, please help us welcome Mr. Gil and Renee Beavers to the podcast, baby. Welcome, fam. What's up? What's up? What's up?
Hey, welcome. The only celebrity is Jesus. We just sparkle and shine for him. We are not celebrities.
Just hands and feet. Just hands and feet.
There you go. There you go. There you go. So, man, check it. This is crazy because, how it all began between, us meeting each other. I think Miss Renee and myself, we were in this, this little...
We ain't going to say the class, though.
We ain't going to say... We was in this group.
We were in the group.
In
a development group.
Yes.
There you go. A development group. And we kind of connected, and I reached out, and we got a chance to talk to you real quick, my wife and I. And then after that conversation, it might have been maybe, I don't know, a couple years, maybe a year or two.
Wow.
Maybe a year or two.
Okay.
And then we recently bumped into you guys, man, at another podcast.
Another event.
Of someone that y'all know I love.
Mutual friend. Mutual.
Okay, she said we could say it. So it was
okay.
His name. We can say his name.
It was at the Dear Wifey podcast, right? So he did a Black Love show here in Grand Prairie, Texas. You guys came down. We got a chance to meet you in person. And man, long story short, here we are, man. You guys on the podcast, baby. So
you know what that's so great about the internet is, or even in the times we live in right now, because this is another time where we have met someone through the internet. Then we finally meet face to face physically, but we have already established a relationship through the internet before even meeting face to face. And that's so great. When you can have a community outside of your physical community that you just grow organically just by being available and being open, which I think is pretty cool.
So this shows that we are real people and available. So if you invite us, we come, right?
And that's what I was going to say too. Like, we really thank you guys for just being so nice and so kind, because you can be like, no, we're busy, we don't, whatever. But you guys were just so gracious and kind. So we appreciate it.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
You know what? Like people.
Yeah.
Yes.
People who are nice are usually attract nice people. We appreciate that. Even just meeting you guys.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
For sure. So let's talk about it, man. Let's get into this thing, because we know, time is short with you guys tonight, but we want to get as much great information, man, as possible. But you guys already have a following based on what you guys do in your own, platform.
Mm-hmm.
We would love to kind of let people, at least our audience, know a little bit about what you guys do. What's the name of your show? What all y'all got going on? Let the people know who you are and what you got.
Sure. I'll let her start it out, because really Renee is the engine behind all the stuff that you see out on the internet. Even though I work in IT as a day job, she's the real dynamo behind the scenes, making all that happen, whether it's a post, whether it's something in writing. I do my part. I'm always feel like I'm catching up. It was funny, our very first website, I actually showed her how to build a website, and she was gone after that. She done totally left me in the dust. The stuff she does now, I won't even pretend to act like I have any hand or any part in it. I'm just following. I'm chasing. I do my part when she says, okay, this is what the show is about. Set up that equipment and we got this interview. I just Oh, we talking. I just do what I'm told. That's the easiest way.
Gil,
But that's where it really started.
Gil, I'm you.
Okay. Yeah. You just, be like, we got an interview tonight. Okay. Okay. What
Yep,
we talking about?
yep, that's me.
Yep. See?
And
Hey.
people understand in every relationship, there is a guardian, extrovert, introvert, or a pioneer extrovert. And I am the pioneer extrovert. And we have our website is richrelationshiprefuge.com. We have two. One is richrelationshiprefuge.com. The other one is marriagementors.com. But our primary focus is our YouTube channel, which is Rich Relationship Refuge, because the Lord really dealt with us during the pandemic. We were doing our podcast, and we started our podcast in 2019.
Didn't know nothing, y'all.
Nothing.
I mean, when I say know nothing, it's funny. One of the couples that we talked to, they said we started listening to y'all podcast, episode 1, and it was in a closet.
We did our episodes at the bottom.
Really?
Because it's got good sound. It's like a booth.
Yeah.
But that's why we did it, because that's what they said on YouTube. So we just did it in the closet, and we stayed in that closet for like 2 or 3 months.
Well, it was longer than that.
Because it
A
was
year.
because it,
That's a year.
well, I know it was after 100-something episodes later. It was great because we finally moved out, and obviously, as you grow, you get better at sound equipment, you get better at stuff. We started on a shoestring budget, and we just started recording the things that we wish somebody had shared with us when we were married. We just celebrated in December 36 years of marriage. We started dating when we were originally 14 and 15. And for a summer, it was that summer love. We were originally from Detroit, so we started working a summer job. And I don't know where did you guys grow up?
New Orleans.
New Orleans?
And New Iberia. We both from Louisiana.
Okay. Well, in Detroit up north, they had these summer jobs, and it used to have a bunch of vacant lots in urban city. It's an urban city, so when they tear a house down, all these weeds grow up. They used to give us these sickles, and we would knock these weeds down half the day, and then at the half of the summer, and then the other half of the summer, they took us in this classroom. I think it was just to get us out that sun, but they took us in the classroom to teach us, like interviewing and, some of the professional skills. I guess that's what you would call it today, like interviewing and resume writing and how to talk and how to speak and that kind of stuff. Well, I walked into the class Renee was in, and she pushed her pencil off the desk. And you can tell this part.
Because I saw him when he walked in, and I'm like, how do I get his attention? And so my mind I'm very, very quick with it. And so I'm like, how do I get his attention? So from the time I saw him to the time he got close to me, I rolled my pencil off the desk. And I said, I was going to say hi to you. And he bent down and picked it up for me. I said, I was going to say hi to you, but I was scared that you wouldn't say hi to me, hi back. And he said, oh, I always say hi to lovely lady.
See, and in this day and time, they would probably say that's game, but I didn't know. I was just responding. I didn't have no game. I was 14 or 15 at the time. I didn't know what that was back then. I just seen a cute girl, and so I just responded, in kind. And for that summer, we were boyfriend, girlfriend. You know how you have that summer love, 14, 15. But then at the end of the summer, I lived on the east side of Detroit. Renee lived on the west side of Detroit. So it was a nice amount of distance in this time, because we didn't bus. We had to catch the bus to everywhere we went. And I said, I think we should break up, because you're going to go to your school. I'm going to go to my school. You may want to date someone. I may want to date someone. And I don't want us to cheat on each other. So I think we should break up.
Now, we will not say we did not grow up in church.
None of that. And go ahead. Tell it.
So I did with a West Side girl from Detroit who has strong female cussing women in her life.
She let me have it, y'all.
I cussed him out.
She cussed me out, boy. Right there on the tree stump at the bus stop. She just let me have it. And I was like, okay, all right. Well, we still broke up. And we actually lost track of each other about 2 years. Well, that's 14, 15. I had graduated. So like 3 years. We had talked to each other periodically just on the phone, because we had always stayed friends. She would tell me about her boyfriends, her knuckleheads, and I would tell her about my girlfriends. We were literally we were literally friends. That was something that we didn't realize till years later how God develops your relationship. It's got to start out as friends. So we were literally authentically just friends. We used to go on dates. I wouldn't try to push up on her. She wouldn't try to push up on me. Well, she was fast. I was trying to be nice. I was trying to be nice. She was fast, and I wasn't fast, y'all. It was all her. So I was being respectful still, of her, and
his girlfriend.
Yeah, because I would have a girlfriend at that time, and if she was busy or something, I was like, hey, Renee, let's go to the movie, because I could have a platonic relationship with her and not violate the relationship I had as a girlfriend.
And all these things, listening to it as a 57-year-old woman is totally different from when you're living it as a 15-year-old,
16, 17, 18, yeah.
And so all these things show his character. But at the time, I'm 15 or 14 and I'm in my feelings, and I already had a lot of issues that I had to unpack. And so I think for us, because we started out so young and we got serious about dating each other, we broke up, got serious about dating each other at 18.
Yeah.
So we have spent our lives growing up together. And I think it's been good for us because and even with working with couples, we realize that there's something to having starting off young together, because you really don't have anything to compare them to.
No history.
And so that's just pretty much kind of like
how we started. And then from there, we got married at 21. And so, which is young in this day and time, I think. So we got married, and because I was in the military in the Air Force at the time, we moved to Minot, North Dakota. That was our first assignment in the middle of nowhere. It was cold. It wasn't no black people there. It was just, but you know what? It was probably one of our best assignments because it forced us to get to know each other, because we didn't have the outside influences of friends and family and all the external things that tend to cause conflict in a relationship. We didn't have that. So we literally had to depend on each other. So we spent a lot of time together, talking and just experiencing things. And so what we did as I remember, this is one of the reasons why we started working with couples, is because after we got married, I went back to work, and my supervisor at the time said, oh, you're a newlywed now? When you're newlyweds, everybody want to give you advice. And so the person was like, well, when you get married, if you want to have a good marriage, you just got to work on your marriage. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's right. Yeah. And I'm looking at him waiting for something else to come after that. Like, what's the work on your marriage stuff? And he gave me nothing. He didn't say read a book. He didn't say go to a seminar or nothing. So I was like, and that stuck with me because I was like, what does that really mean? Because my parents got divorced when I was 7 or 8, and Renee's parents weren't married. So we really didn't have an example of what a healthy marriage even looked like. But that resonated with me, and I remembered it years and years later when we started working with couples, and that's how we really started doing this thing, because couples would just start coming to us and saying, well, what do you guys do? Or just asking for advice and things like that. And we said, and I'm an analytical thinker, so I said, you know what, let's reverse engineer what we do. This is years later. Let's just start thinking about our relationship and sharing it with other people. And not saying that we got all the answers, but if it's something that they can glean from, use it. Make it your own, and take it from there.
And then we got trained through our church. And so we've just been working with couples now. This year is 20 years. And that's where Rich Relationship Refuge was birthed, the book, the workbooks, and just really giving people something to put in their hand so that they have the answers. Because people always say that life doesn't come with instructions. And I don't think that's true. I think life does come with instructions, and it's the Bible.
Yeah.
But how do you apply it to your life? And so that's how we started Rich Relationship Refuge, to provide not just advice, not just life hacks, but to show them how to do it in a way where it's duplicatable and enjoyable.
So interesting. So you guys started doing it like from the church. It's kind of where everything just kind of spring from that.
Yeah.
When did you guys kind of take it like online to really,
It's funny when we started, because of being in the military. One thing that I said, well, if we're gonna talk to couples, we need to get trained. to really understand and know what we're talking about. So we always tell couples we're not counselors, we're not therapists or anything like that.
We're coaches and
Well,
mentors.
yeah, but we did go through our church. They had a multi-month process of being lay counselors. So we're not social worker type psychologists, therapist counselors in a traditional speaking, but we're church Christian counselors based on the Bible and what the Bible teaches. We went through a lot of stuff when it came to there. And so during the pandemic, like Renee mentioned, we originally, because this is the pioneer, the entrepreneur, the one that's always doing things, she's always owned her own businesses and things. I said, you know what? It would be pretty good if you did a podcast, because I've listened to podcasts all the time, even before we started doing the relationship thing. And I said, so I got smart, and I'm techie, and I like the gear and all that kind of stuff. I said, you should do a podcast. So she's like, okay. But she didn't finish that statement. I didn't know it was we gonna do a podcast. It was you should do a podcast. I'll set the equipment up for you. I'll get your lights. I'll get your mics. I get all that stuff. And the Lord spoke to her and said, we should do it, as a couple. And I was like, I didn't hear that. But I also had a desire, and I always have had a love for the couples, marriage, because even when I was a kid, I always wanted to be married, even as a little boy. I remember that. I didn't know what a wife was, and I didn't know everything she did, but I just knew I wanted one, but the funny thing is Renee didn't want to get married at all.
No, I didn't.
You want to comment on that, babe?
No. I guess because for me, now that I understand myself a lot better, I understand why I probably had those kind of goals, and that was not my mindset. Because for me, I felt like I grew up seeing so many women be so dependent on men, and like my grandmother was married to my grandfather my whole life, and she would always like she always seemed like a second class citizen to me. I didn't really see her as being a woman. I saw her as being his wife. And so for me, being a wife wasn't something that I looked at as a good thing. I looked at it from the perspective of you had to get married because you couldn't take care of yourself. And so for me, my goal was I wanted to be able to take care of myself. I wanted to be able to buy my own, have my own apartment, have my own car, have my own stuff. So the idea of getting married was never on my mind. And even because I went from high school to cosmetology school into a salon, working as a salon manager and as an assistant. And everybody kept saying, oh, one day you're going to meet the right person and you're going to want to get married. I was like, okay. And through school, Gil really helped me a lot. When we really got serious about really dating, I was like, okay, I could be his wife. Maybe not a wife, but I could be his wife. And so, like, to answer your question, when did we start? We started our podcast in 2019. And the reason why we went online was because the Lord said, go to where they are. I'm like, where are they at? He said, they're on the internet. And so for me, I didn't even know how to text. So a lot of the things I've learned out of necessity, like learning how to build a website, graphics and podcasting and editing and videos and writing pitches and, sending out press releases, and all of those things are things that we had to learn how to do.
Publishing books.
Yeah. Books. I just looked at, we published 9 books. So we have, as of today, we have 9 books.
And that's all her. Remember I said that at the beginning. That was the disclaimer. That's all her. I do my part with the writing and stuff like that. But, because we're a team and we work at it together, it's not just Renee's vision. It's our vision. It's something that we have a desire to do. And we love working together. Yeah. We love each other's company. We're best friends. Yeah. It's not a something that people just say. They do say it, but they really don't. The minute the camera go off, they're like, they separate way. No, we'll probably be sitting here after we get off with y'all watching TV or something. Then if I say, I'm going to bed, she's like, me too.
I'm not sleepy.
Even though she'll turn the TV on, and I'm trying to go to sleep because I get up so early.
I sit in the bed. I was like, I'm not sleepy. I'm going with you.
So I did a little bit of research.
Okay.
Because I wanted to know a little bit more about who we were going to talk to. we've seen each other. You're a beautiful couple. You're amazing. So I read up on Canvas Rebel. You guys did an interview with them. And you talked about, you started the podcast. There are a few things that I would like to go back to, but
okay.
You said, and I quote, 2020 was a whirlwind today. Today, 2020 was a whirlwind. Today, I must have messed, I didn't chop this up. But anyway, you said our plans were flipped upside down. Our lives were put on hold, and our relationship was stretched beyond capacity and bent out of shape, life as we once knew it. What do you mean by that? So I ask that because you guys have been married for 36 years in December. December what?
28.
Okay. My birthday is December 17th, so that's why.
Okay. Mine is the 5th.
Oh.
That's why we connected.
Yes. And another reason why we connected too, because we're both hairstylists, but we'll talk about that too.
Okay.
So you've been married 36 years, and you seem, like I said, like a lovely couple. But I am sure that there were things that you guys had to overcome. Oh, yeah. A lot of times I was listening to another podcast, and this pastor, his name is Erwin Manaskas, I believe that's his name. And you also said something in that article about becoming. And I love that. You said becoming is something, right? I forgot how you quoted it. But he said to the fact that becoming is we look for somebody. First, he said we choose somebody according to our self-worth, right? And then he said we also choose someone or we love someone as they are. But what we should be doing is loving the person as who they are. Right? So what has been some challenges that you guys have overcome? You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Some of our biggest things we've had to overcome is being in the military, because we spent a lot of time apart. A part of the reason why, and I think what made me a good Air Force wife was that I have been very self-contained. I am not high maintenance. I am not very dependent. And that was a struggle at first for us, because I'm the first child, and I was the only child, and my parents were addicts. I come from parents both of my parents were drug addicts. And so I grew up very fast. I have 3 younger siblings. My mother got killed by a serial killer. And so at 21, when we got married, we had our daughter when we were 23. And so at 23, we had just had our first child. My mother got killed by a serial killer. And then we had a 9 and a 10-year-old to come and live with us.
We adopted her 2 younger sisters.
So that was a big, and I think that's what I was talking about in that part. That was from something else. That was everything about our life. Was we were in Germany, we were making a lot of money, we were out of debt, everything was great. Our life was just sailing along with our little baby. And then my mother got murdered. And so we went from being newlyweds with a new baby to being basically, I was an orphan. My parents were gone. And then having my 2 siblings that were 9 and 10 to have to come and live with us. So we chose to adopt them, because Gil said, well, I always said I wanted to have one, because I also didn't want kids either. I wanted to have one and adopt one, because there were so many kids who needed someone to take care of them. And so we had our daughter, and then we adopted my 2 sisters. So at 23, we had a lot of things that were going on that in a lot of relationships, that could have been the end. He could have said, I don't want to raise your siblings. Much. Yeah. I could have said, I don't want to travel around. So we've overcome a lot of things that most couples now don't overcome. And so I would say our biggest issues have been learning how to accept each other's differences, and learning how to realize that we're going to change, but we may not change in the same area at the same time, and extending grace to one another, and prioritizing our marriage even over our family.
And I would say one thing that was difficult for me is I remember one deployment that I had to go on, and our marriage was at a low state. we had become complacent. We had been married, like they call it, that 7-year itch or whatever. I think we were maybe a little bit younger than that. Maybe it was over 5 years.
Yeah.
Let's just say that. And I remember getting a call and they asked me if I wanted to go take this mission that was leaving. And at that time in the military, you get paid to go on these missions. And I just looked at Renee. I'm on the phone. I said, hey, going to South America, 3 months. And she said, is it making money? I was like, yes. And she was like, yes. She's like, go. No thoughts, no nothing, right? And so when we did that, I remember I said we were complacent. It was at that low state.
We're just parents.
We didn't know. We had started losing touch with each other as husband and wife. And I was in South America on a mission, and I believe God divined that to happen because of what happened during that trip. Was it went from 3 months to 6 months. They extended it. And God put some brothers in Christ across my path to help me get back on track because my relationship with the Lord had just totally went cold, as they say. I wasn't even thinking about God. He wasn't involved in our marriage. We weren't praying. We weren't reading. We weren't going to church. None of that, so, and God put this guy across my path. Just happened to be named John. And we just started having Bible study every night, and I would just start getting back into music, the Christian music and things like that. And when I came back, I did two things. I worked on spiritual and I worked on physical. I just went into the gym, and because where I went, it was like a modern day Sodom and Gomorrah. It was very sexually explicit area, because it was in South America and that kind of stuff. And I just shut away. Literally, I just said, you know what? I'm just going to go to the gym and I'm going to read my Bible. I'm going to stay faithful to my wife and I'm going to get my relationship back. And when I came back, it was totally revolutionary for our relationship. Because
and while he was gone, God was working on me because my mom was so hard on me when it came to our daughter. I didn't want to discipline her. I wanted to just love her. And he said, I'm going to be gone for 3 months and you're going to have to discipline her. You can't put it on me. So you're going to have to discipline her. And God really helped me to work on being a better parent for her and for the girls, and also me learning about me. That was time that God gave me for our relationship. So while God was working on Gil, God was working on Renee. And then when he brought us together, it was like we both could see where the other person had grown.
Like you said, talked about
and
those
it brought
changes.
us closer together.
Yep, those changes that happen. And yeah, you're going to change over the years, but you also should be pursuing change from a spiritual perspective, from a mental, emotional, all those areas that will benefit your relationship as a whole. We became more intentional about those changes in a positive way, not just on the physical aspect of getting the body right and all that kind of stuff, or putting on the nice clothes and things like that, which are benefits. Don't get me wrong. It's benefits to it. But it was something that we didn't even realize that God was going to bless even more, so that's how I would probably say the changes mattered and helped us.
Wow. Man, so that was a what? You said 6 months you were gone?
Yeah, 6 months.
And from the time that you left, where things were like that distance was created.
Yep.
And then 6 months later, you came back. God was working on you and her, and everything was just.
Then we came back.
And it made us, and the thing that I think that was different about the way things were for us, our communication, we didn't have texting and we didn't have, and we couldn't talk every day. So we really, when we got a chance to talk and like write each other, you just learn to communicate better, and you learn to communicate like
with intentionality.
Yeah. And then he was deployed again when our daughter was in high school. He went to the Middle East
for a year,
for 12 months. So we've had a lot of times. And so whereas before we saw it as a negative, we began to realize, okay, God must have something he's doing in my heart that he needs me to focus on. Because even as a couple, God is always wants you to focus on you because you're the only person you have control over. So whenever we're apart, even if it's for life, now it's like shorter, it might be a week or it might be days. But whenever we're apart, I just know that, okay, Lord, there must be something that you want to do with me about as an individual so that I can be a better us. And so that's how we've looked at it.
Wow. So being that y'all didn't have the examples, right? Coming up, growing up, right? Renee, she didn't have the example that she probably would have liked to have had. And then you as well, Gil, but you seem like you were raised well mannered, just a real pretty, decent guy who had integrity at an early age where, how was, and what was that like? Because I know, like, say, for instance, like she and I, we were two different, grew up different, right? So, and because our first year of marriage was tough because, we were just so different in how we grew up when we first started. When we lived together, it was crazy. Did y'all go through any of that, man, just from the challenges of how y'all grew up differently?
Well, we dated for 3 years before we got married. So we worked a lot of that out in the dating stage. Like you said, I cussed him out. I cussed him out 2 times in our relationship. And the last time I cussed him out, he was like, look, we can't do this. This is not the way you should be communicating. And he was a teenager and I'm a teenager. And he's telling me that you shouldn't communicate that way. You're so beautiful.
At least not to me.
You should use better words than that. And when he said you shouldn't talk like that. And I was so convicted by this. Now I wasn't saved, but I felt like that's wrong. He's right. I got to start working on the way so even before I got saved, God started dealing with me about my communication, about the words that came out of my mouth. And I, even to this day, that's something I still have to guard myself against. So I think that sometimes couples don't give themselves time for God to work the things out with them as a couple before they get married. So when we went into our marriage, we had issues, but because we dated for 3 years, we had some of that stuff where we had kind of already established, don't cuss at me, don't,
and I would say because my mom, I was raised by a single mom. So I had a healthy respect for women because I seen what my mom went through. So I wasn't going to call her out her name or abuse or anything like that because I had just that respect for my mom. But I also knew that when it came to how I wanted to treat Renee, or even the girlfriends that I had, with respect, like you were saying, I can't say that it was because I didn't have it growing up, where you could go to the barbershop and I seen how guys treated other girls or talked about girls behind the back when they wasn't around, like at the barbershop or something like that. And I was like, nah, that just wasn't me inherently, naturally, but the other flip side of that is I'm passive aggressive too, where I would just be quiet, reserve it, it'll stew underneath. I wouldn't say anything. And it was crazy because my first 13 years in the military, I was a police officer, which is nothing but confrontation. And I'm a non-confrontational type unless I have to be, so when that happened, especially with Renee, because Renee is like, right there, let's deal with this, let's do it. We got this issue, we got this problem. And I'm like, I need time to process, let's take a step back. And I think over time, that was one of the biggest challenges that we had in differences early in our relationship. Remember the now laters growing up? She was a now, I was a later, like easy. So she would like want to deal with it. And I'm like, nah, let's back up a little bit. Let's take it down a notch, let's just do it differently. And I think the part that was beneficial for us is we had that respect for each other, that she would give me space after a few years of we ain't going this ain't working, whatever, when we try to have a discussion or a conflict or something like that, I would just not even want to talk about it or just ignore it or whatever. And Renee would want to deal with it and it wasn't going anywhere, So I said, you know what, we have to come up with something to resolve it.
And something else that helped us really early in our marriage was because I was a hairstylist and I had a lot of clients. One of my clients was a therapist. And, back then people weren't going to therapy. People weren't going to
not
counseling.
us.
And so she was like, I love the way you guys interact. And I really want to get inside the way you guys, I've never seen a couple so young operate the way you do. And so she took us in and she was working with us. And
we were going to therapy.
We were going
Didn't
to therapy.
know it.
And one of the things that she showed us about our growth area was how I communicated to Gil, like I wanted Gil to respond the way things that way I did. And I think that's when I first started realizing, okay, I might want to do it now, but if that doesn't work for him, then I need to be able to take into consideration how it's going to work for both of us. Because making him talk, saying what's wrong, what's wrong, what's wrong, what's wrong, what's wrong, that's going to make it escalate. Then it may not be the problem; it's going to be my reaction to the problem. And so I think we learned early that, and I think the biggest thing that helps us is our temperament. We both have the same temperament. I am real, like, although I have a real outgoing personality, I'm like, okay, I'm not going. I'm not a reactionary person. I'm not short tempered. Neither one of us are short tempered. And I think that has a lot to do with what's helped us. Even though our personalities are different, our temperament. Like I grew up with women screaming and hollering and cussing. And so I just knew for me, I didn't want that. I didn't want that volume. I didn't want because I watched my dad and my mom. I watched him. He was my stepdad. But he raised me. I watched how my mother would get in his face and scream and holler and cuss at him. And I was like, that's just not good, you know? And so they showed me a lot of what not to do.
But you said earlier, because I was going to ask you about that you, in the beginning, you would cuss at him.
Yes.
At Gil. So I was wondering if that is something that you picked up, that you saw growing up, and also was that your way of protecting you? Because you didn't know how to protect yourself.
I didn't.
You know,
yes.
Was that a way of just protecting you?
Yeah. And even though, like in the beginning, like for me, I've always known that my mouth it's a double-edged sword. And I knew later on in life, I realized that it was something that God was going to use, but I had to make sure I gave it to the Lord and I didn't give it to the enemy. And so, yes, I do believe that I use my words as a weapon. And he would always say that. He was like, man, and I didn't have to raise my voice. And then I learned I don't have to raise my voice. I don't have to cuss, and I can make you cry with my words. And so when you see that you have that kind of power, you have to realize, am I going to use it for good or for evil? And I think that a lot of times women don't realize that we're using our words for evil, and it hurts our men, and they may not know. Whereas women can take it, like you can say things to your girlfriends, but the things you can say to your girlfriends, your husband, he can't take that. And when God started showing me that, I started realizing I want to make sure I'm not wounding him. I want to make sure that I'm a safe place for him, that I'm using my words to encourage him and edify him and not tear him down.
And I always say it's funny because I had to learn to speak Renee. I had to learn to speak her language that she understood, the way I could communicate effectively with her. And she had to learn how to speak to me. So in essence, learn to speak Gil. You know, that unwritten communication that you have with your spouse, you know, it's almost like you could walk into a room when you know that there's something wrong with Kat, and vice versa. You just know it. It's a feeling. You can just interpret body language. It's uncommunicated verbal or that you just pick up on. But you also know how to talk to him where he will receive, and vice versa. And that's just something that you grow with over time, but you have to be intentional about it to be understood more than just hearing the words that are coming out. You know, sometimes couples get into that battle where they want to win the argument or be right instead of resolving the conflict and getting an understanding about what is really going on with us, whether it's a conflict or misunderstanding or anything else. You have to get understanding more than anything else when it comes to interacting with your spouse.
This episode of Couples Connect is sponsored by Just Like You Hair Care System. Introducing Just Like You Hair Care, the perfect solution for healthy, growing, moisturized hair. Our hair growth oil is enriched with essential oils like calendula, lavender, rose petals, also enriched with nourishing jojoba oil, promoting growth, reducing breakage, and restoring scalp health. Follow with our moisturizing leave-in cream to lock in hydration for smooth, manageable hair all day long. So you get to feel confident with thicker, stronger, and deeply moisturized hair. Our products are made with all natural ingredients and is designed for women or anyone who want a holistic approach to hair wellness. Shop today and experience the transformation. just like you hair care, your hair, your confidence, and your journey. The link is in the show notes. Now back to the episode.
That's a great point, man. I think a lot of stuff that we're talking about now, like I listen to you guys and a lot of the things that you guys are saying, it's like, I had to learn. I had to learn.
Yeah.
I had to learn, right? That's something that's been repeated over and over again. And I think about, even us, right? We had to learn a lot of different things. And I think a lot of couples sometimes they're not intentional about continuing to learn what it
Yes.
takes to strengthen their marriage, what it takes to make their marriage work, right? And I think that's was probably maybe a small portion of why some marriages don't last, don't stand the test of time, because they don't want to put in the time and the effort to really and don't want to face the fact that some of the issues probably me. Like, hey, it's my fault for some of this stuff, right? So I think there's just so many things that people can just, if they can just hang in there and be intentional about really wanting the marriage to work. There's some things you're gonna have to go through, and you're gonna have to learn some stuff. You have to, and a lot of stuff you're gonna have to learn.
Unlearn.
Yeah, and a lot of stuff you're gonna learn is gonna be about yourself.
First.
Very true.
And that's so important that when we always say you got to become a student of your spouse or the person you're in relationship with. Not only speaking their language, know how they understand you, how they interact, know what's going on with them. Just like you take a college course or a class, whether it's learn to do hair, work on computers, or whatever, you have to become a student of your person that you're in a relationship with, or your spouse, because those are going to pay a lot more dividends to you later. If you invest that time, effort, and energy, it's going to build that resilience in you. We always say it like this: you have to make those deposits when things are going good. So when things are going bad, you got to have something that you can make withdrawals on.
Mm.
If you have not been making deposits in your relationship, when tough times come, there's nothing you're going to be NSF. There's nothing to withdraw on or pull out because you weren't making the deposits or being a student of your significant other.
I also think that you need to become a student of yourself.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
As well. And I think that's where Kevin and I, we didn't do that when we were younger. We didn't know what to do, you know. And then you find yourself later on in your marriage, 20 years, 10 years, whatever it may be, now learning, having to go back and learn you.
Yes.
Because you're not the same person you were at 24 or at 21.
Oh no.
And you changed, and along the journey of changing, especially if you are growing into your highest self, if you are intentional about that. And a lot of times when you're growing in your life, you tend to bring out that other person's flaws or whatever about them, and then you begin to clash with one because you're living in your life and you're exposing that other person's, your spouse's flaws and whatever it is that they're having to deal with, and then you just start to clash, you start to fight because I'm no longer the same person, I'm no longer passive, or I'm no longer quiet, I'm saying what I have to say. And this is for men and women, it's not just women, but it takes a lot of maturity, it takes a lot of you being a student of yourself.
Oh yeah.
You have to, and there's nothing wrong with becoming a student of yourself if you've been married for 6 years, or it's never too late. You just can't go your whole life or your whole marriage being the same person and never knowing who you are. And with that being said, for as long as you guys have been married, how do you as a couple separate, as far not separate, but have your own independence, have your own autonomy? How do you do that?
I think it's important because we just had this conversation with someone about this idea of people growing apart, and in the 20 years of me working with couples and being married for 36 years, it takes more energy to grow apart than it does to grow together. Because to grow apart with someone that you share a bed, a table, a bathroom, a life with, it means you have to be ignoring them. And so it's just about when you are aware of, like, I know my growth areas. I know the areas where I am weak and that are places that I need help with. And then I see those strengths in Gil. I'm like, I need him. I need what he brings to the table. And so instead of looking at the areas where he's strong, that may be my growth area, I look at that as an asset. It's like, well, I don't bring that to the table, but he does. And so I think it's a matter of, one, understanding when you say those vows, it's to the Lord. I didn't just say those vows to Gil, I said them to the Lord. And so if I said them to the Lord, if I spend time with the Lord every day, God will give me insight into Renee, but he also gives me insight into Gil. And even though he may be changing and growing, and we may be changing and growing in different areas, I believe that everything that happens in the spirit first. And if we're spending time in God's presence, God will give you insight into your mate's heart sometimes before they even see it. And it's just being sensitive enough. And I think that's why being a wife is it's such a big responsibility, because I don't just have to worry about being the keeper of my own soul and covering myself. I'm a helpmate. I'm called to cover him, to understand him, to pray for him. And so I think that sometimes we go into marriage not understanding that you go to marriage to give and not receive. And so because that's my posture, I understand that I'm sowing into him. I'm loving on him. I'm praying for him. I'm seeing his growth areas and his strength, just like I see mine. And so I think it's just a matter of how we approach it, because I think that change is a beautiful thing, and I love change. But like for Gil, he doesn't. It drives him crazy.
And I think even on when it comes to the relationship, not only do you still have to be true to who you are as an individual and know your likes, your dislikes, the things that you need to grow at, the things that you are strength, what are your strengths as well. You have to have that inward journey to say, you know what, these are the areas that I feel or that I know are challenging. But I also know that there's the longest journey that you actually take is the one inward. So when you think about how we're different, but I also give Renee the freedom to still be who she is as an individual and not feel like she has to be assimilated into Gil's world and vice versa. Especially when you are comfortable in your relationship and in your skin, that she can go out and do things, whatever, let's just say an activity that she likes doing, and I don't have to participate if it's something that I don't enjoy doing, and it's not going to cause a problem. It's not going to cause a rift because we're comfortable in the relationship as a whole. I know she's going to come back, and I know I'm going to always come back. So I think that more like in accepting the differences, but also the freedom to know that we're different, but you also have a life outside of me.
That's good.
But we just like spending each other time with together.
Yeah, that's good. You just told somebody. That's good. I know for us, when I, go to the store or something like that, I like to go to the store. I like to go grocery shopping. And sometimes Kevin don't want to go grocery shopping with me. That's my time where I am just moving slow.
Yeah.
I don't want to, whatever the case may be. That being able to have that freedom in your marriage is so important. So important.
And it's understanding that you have the rest of your life to figure each other out. So what's the rush? Because I think we feel like we got to know everything right now. And it's a journey. It's a journey of discovery. If I haven't figured me out, how could I expect for him to have figured? I think that sometimes we have unrealistic expectations, and we watch so much stuff. We watch television, and we watch social media, and we watch all these little skits, and they're so cute and they're so scripted. Life isn't like that. And so I think that if we had I think that we know too much about people that we'll never meet, and most of it isn't even true.
And I think even subconsciously we start comparing ourselves, even though it's not intentional. I always said, and I think I said this in one of the episodes a couple weeks ago, comparison breeds discontentment. When you start comparing you against anything, I don't care whether it's physically, materialistically, emotionally, whatever, relationships or whatever, when you start comparing it against somebody else, you're going to start being discontent with what you have. You're going to start looking at it like and comparing it and saying, well, we don't do this or we don't do that. Well,
you're not them.
Exactly. So if you're aware of that, then I can appreciate your relationship for what it is and not compare it to mine and say, well, we don't do that. Well, me and Renee grocery shop together every week, you know. Well, Kev, you got to start grocery shopping, man. No,
you have to figure out what works for you as
exactly.
a couple. Just like Gil don't put away groceries. That's just not his thing.
I'll buy them. I'll go to the store. I'll deliver. Like that blue truck, I will deliver them. I will put them on your porch. I will put them on your counter. But I hate putting them up.
But a part of it is just understanding that in order to be together and to be able to enjoy each other is to know you're not with you, you're with somebody else. And like for me, I grew up around a lot of women. So there are things that I would do and say, and the Lord was like, he's not a girl. He's not going to understand that. And then there are also times when he showed me, you're telling your cousin and your mom and all these other people everything. How do you expect him to ever learn how to navigate your emotions if you don't tell him? And so a lot of the reasons why our men don't know how to interact with us because we don't show them. We don't let them in. We don't let them see. He's like, oh, I didn't know that bothered you. Oh, well. And so then the Lord started showing me the only way he's going to know how to do that is that you're going to have to show him. He doesn't know. And so we always say, I have his back and he has my back. And even if he does something I don't like or that hurts me, I'll tell him, but I understand he didn't do it on purpose.
It's not intentional.
It's not intentional.
It's not malicious.
He's human. He's going to hurt me. I'm going to hurt him. But guess what? We're going to forgive each other. We're going to talk about it and we don't.
Because you have to think about it. Conflicts and disagreements and however you want to describe them, those are opportunities for you to get it right. Because then you're explaining and you're listening and you're understanding. And so you're like, okay, because that's the definition of the word misunderstanding. I was misunderstood. So if you think about it from that, and that's usually the root of the conflict, it's just a misunderstanding that one had over the other. So if you take time and kind of reverse it and say, okay, I want to be understood in this thing, whatever it may be, then you get understanding, then you get clarity, and then you get resolution.
And then you get closer. And that's what intimacy is. Intimacy is not just sex. It's that he sees me, he understands me, he gets me. And that's what makes your sex life better. But so many times people jump to sex without intimacy and they wonder why they're not becoming closer.
Or something is missing.
True that. What do you guys, after 20 years of working with other couples, counseling other couples, helping other couples, what's the main thing that you guys see that couples are struggling with the most?
You guess.
You give one and I'll give one.
No, let's let them guess first. You guess.
What do you think?
Man, communication is one that I would definitely think.
That's one.
Number one.
Really?
And we've been talking about it already. Conflict resolution.
Yeah.
Conflict.
Yeah.
Those are the top two. Even with all the couples we deal with, we always cover those.
And to me, if I had to say the two things that couples struggle with, it's communication and it's their identity.
Yeah,
I think that when
the individual identity or their identity together as a couple.
You have to have individual identity before you can have couple identity.
For sure.
And so many people go into marriage, they get married because, I need my most important identifier is daughter of the king. Because that's eternal. I won't be a mother or a wife eternally. And so I think that when we teach people to really go into the relationship with a sense of who they are, then I have something to offer him. I have something valuable that he can't give me to offer him. But if I go to him thinking that, I need you to make me a wife because I need value, that puts so much pressure on him. And so I think that you're learning your identity and knowing who you are in Christ Jesus and then learning how to communicate is so valuable. Because if those two, because I think at the root of everything, our problems are, I don't think I'm enough. And then I don't even know how to communicate that.
That is what I meant when I said that, when I said earlier that we usually choose a partner by the self-worth that we have for ourselves. whether it's high or it's low. We always looking for somebody. If we don't know our identity, and I know for me for years I did it. And if we don't have that, we are going to look for our spouse, our husband, or our wife to validate that I'm valued, I'm enough, I'm loved, I'm all of that. That gets old, because you're also dealing with somebody who don't even know it about them all, about themselves. So that can cause conflict. But we talk about communication being one of the biggest things that people deal with in marriages. And it's crazy because you would think that you've been married for so long, you've been together for so long, and communication is so easy. You would think that bringing peace into a relationship is easy, but war is more easier than having peace. Hating somebody is easier than loving. And why? It's because it takes intention, it takes consistency, and it takes you wanting to communicate with that person.
Absolutely.
It's hard. It's not easy.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's hard because we aren't taught how to communicate.
Yeah.
Because we think that talking is communicating.
Yeah.
And the most important element of communication, and I think especially for women, is to be a good listener. We're really good at talking, but we're not always good at listening to understand. And so if you're listening to understand, then you're not trying to respond. And who doesn't want to be understood? So I think that our idea of communication is, well, I told him everything, but did you listen? Did you try to understand? Were you because I was talking, somebody was watching a post and someone said, yeah, I did that on Monday and we haven't talked since Monday. I said, what was your tone? What time was it? What was your body language? Because how you say what you say is just sometimes as important as how you say it. And so I think sometimes, especially in our culture, like I said, I grew up with cussing women. That was a communication
deficiency,
major deficiency. And so I think that sometimes we tell people, we say it's communication, but communication is listening and making sure that you're clear about listening to understand and making sure that you're clear about what you want and need. Because just guess. People, you should just know. I don't expect for him just know. Even if we've been together 39 years, I still don't just expect for him. I expect that it's my job to be able to clearly articulate what I want, what I need, and what my problem is. So when I come to him, I'm not coming to him for him to value me or to make me feel good about myself. I'm coming to him because I have a responsibility to be able to tell him what I need and what I want and not just expect for him to know.
One thing that we share, especially with our guys, when it comes to communication, sometimes the guys, we have a difficulty attaching our emotions with communication. When I say that, I'm saying there was a lot of things that Renee, one of the questions you asked at the very beginning of this, one of those deficient areas or the challenges that we had coming together. Emotionally, I was ignorant. I didn't know my emotions enough to know what I was feeling and how to articulate that and how it manifested into our relationship. Renee was very instrumental in helping me understand some of the emotions other than lust and anger that I had, that I was experiencing, and saying, oh, that's vulnerability, or that's fear, or that's anxiety, or whatever. You can just name the emotions. She helped me to understand that. And what she did was that she did one little thing, and we shared this on one of the episodes just recently as well. Ask him, what is he thinking?
Because I always say, how you feel? How you feel?
I don't know.
And the Lord was like, I don't think he feels. He thinks.
So when she asked me what I think, and I tell her what I think, and then she can take that and translate it and say, oh, that's what you feel. And that was like, it is? Oh, okay. So that's what that feels like. I was able to attach the thinking with the feeling, and now I can understand what some of the things that were going on internally with me, because I was deficient in that area, to say, oh, okay, I'm feeling a little exposed right now, or embarrassed, or vulnerable, or all what we would consider the weak emotions. You got to have them just as well. and if you don't tap into them and be as much as you can and be in tap with that, it's going to spill over into your relationship, and it's going to manifest in anger because you're frustrated. You don't know what's going on because you can't articulate it because you don't know what it is.
Man, that's so good. That was good, Gil. And me being the man, I can truly identify with everything you just said, sir. That's real talk. Trying to decipher what those emotions are and what's going on.
Absolutely.
Not really knowing how to, how to give them a name. But you're right. Thinking something is always
thinking.
Something always right. Thinking. Right, and then it creates a emotion, but you don't know what that emotion is. But I know what I'm thinking.
Yep.
Right, so that was pretty interesting to kind of look at it like that. So ask me what I'm thinking right now.
See, you didn't know you were bilingual, did you, Tanya?
I didn't.
Yeah, but that's good stuff, man. So tell me this, man, because I know we want to try to be, keep everything honest around this hour.
Yeah.
We're right at that hour mark right now. But two things. One, I would love if you guys can give someone. We know that communication is really the biggest thing, and we based on our podcast, trust me, that's been the main topic that couples struggle with, that we talk about.
Yeah.
So, how would you, both you guys, from a man perspective, from a woman's perspective, what would you tell a couple if, Renee, you know how women communicate or lack thereof. How would you address a woman and say to get better with our communication? And the same thing with you, Gil, with the brothers, where we kind of, we don't like to talk. We kind of go in that hiding place, and we don't really want to address a lot of the situations that we're dealing with, so which we should try to find a way to verbalize those things and get it out, because we sit in it, we suppress it, and now it's building up in us. And then at one point it may come out, and now we're going to explode, right?
Yep.
So, want you both you guys to speak to the female and the male on how should they work through this communication piece, man, that so many couples are struggling with. Speak to that.
I think the first thing that I can say for me as a woman that has helped me is my communication with the Lord. That spending time with God every single day to help Him to temper my words, my attitude, my perspective. And so that when I am communicating, I'm communicating with grace, I'm communicating with clarity and brevity. Sometimes as women, we take a 1-minute story and make it an hour. And sometimes men can't handle that. And so it's just taking into consideration that you're not talking to a woman. He's never going to be a woman. He's going to always be a man. And so to me, like you said, women are bilingual. I think that when you learn to communicate with a man, I think it makes a woman a more effective communicator. And so rather than seeing it as, oh, he's changing me, no, we're making each other better. And so I think it's just understanding that as a woman, your tone, your volume, your body language, and the time you choose to talk to him. I learned really early when Gil comes home from work after being at work all day long, and he's already had everybody beating him down and giving him 2,500 assignments, I have to be a safe place for him. If there is something I want to say, I will table it until a time when I know I'm going to have his undivided attention and he's not under distress. And so those are just kind of things that are important to think about with communication, and realizing that I'm listening to understand and not to respond or even to convince the other person that that's not how they feel.
Yeah, that's good.
And I would say from the guy's perspective, something that was instrumental for me was being able to articulate what I was feeling once I identified it and telling Renee what I needed. Sometimes as a man, we don't articulate what we need from our women, whatever that may be. It's not just taking care of a meal or I need you to run an errand or a chore. Sometimes, babe, I need you to support me. Sometimes I'm feeling, like she said, beat down. This should be the person that I can go to that has my back. that I can be, we call it being hot, honest, open, and transparent to Renee because of, like she said, out there in the world and out there in life, and especially as a Black man, you're gonna get it. And know that I can come to a safe space and be open about how I'm feeling, what I'm thinking about, and the things that go along with all the emotions that go with it. It's been instrumental for me as a man to be able to come home and talk to Renee and say, this is how I feel, this is what's going on. And I'm not looking for her to give me a solution. Sometimes I just need to vocalize what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, and what do I need from her.
Mm.
So that's what I would share.
Yeah. No, that's good, man. That's good. You want to say something? Yeah. Man, so my next thing would be where can people connect with you guys, man, if they want to kind of connect? I know you guys y'all got 9 books out there. Y'all got y'all doing, counseling. Y'all have your own platforms where y'all doing some amazing content, dropping, nothing but gems and nuggets to people, man, that that need help. How people can connect with you guys, man, and where can they find you guys at?
Well, our YouTube channel is Rich Relationship Refuge with Gil and Renee. We go live every Saturday because we realize people need a safe place. And so that would probably be the main priority, we would say, with our YouTube channel. Because we have a lot of short content, but we have a lot of long content. And you're a creator as well. Trying to create something that will be sustainable and to be monetized, it takes time, And so just having people to go watch our long videos on YouTube, Rich Relationship Refuge with Gil and Renee, that would help a lot. And we appreciate you guys having us.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
We love you guys, and we're so excited.
Time just flies by. This is something we love to do. Yeah.
Right.
Again, and doing something together.
Yeah.
And really, I appreciate what you guys are doing.
Yeah, and don't be weary in doing well. When you're doing what God has called you to do, it's going to be times where you're like, I really don't feel like doing this. There have been so many times where I was the one that, when we started doing this, was like the numbers and are we reaching anybody? Is it making a difference? You know what? When you read the comments, just one person, that's all it takes. God went after the one. If you help one, it's worth it. So don't get weary in doing it, because there are so many people that you're impacting that you may never even meet, and sometimes God will send it across your path that somebody said, man, you said such and such, that really helped me.
So you're making a difference. And it's the thing that I love about what we're doing is that we're doing something our parents wouldn't do. Because normally with our culture, what goes on in our house stays in our house. And I appreciate you guys for opening up your house, your marriage, and your all platform. Of our houses and marriages, because it needs to be, we need to share what God is teaching us and not keep it to ourselves. The real stuff, not just the
pretty stuff, the good stuff, not just our awesome vacations and all our stuff.
Yeah.
But the times when we going through some stuff, that's what really resonates. So we appreciate you guys. Thank y'all.
That's funny you said that, because a couple of weeks ago we were at an event, and also a couple of weeks ago we had our first live podcast.
Okay.
And this lady walked up to me at the event, and she said, "Hey, you were at this podcast yesterday." And I was like, nice. "Yeah, I was." And she said, "I was in the audience." And she said, she just kept talking and talking and talking. But she said exactly what you just said. That you're going to get tired, you're going to get weary, you're going to feel like you're not doing anything, but stop working. But just keep going.
Yeah.
She said the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. God gives us things in seed form. He doesn't give us trees. It's a seed. Take care of it, water it. And when the seed is under the ground for a long time, don't be discouraged.
Because every time you do an episode, you do a post, you're just sprinkling seeds.
Yeah.
That's so good, man. Y'all don't even know how much just that, encouraging to hear right now, because, this is season 3 for us. And, it's sometimes we, like I said, don't get weary in well doing. Sometimes, sometimes you can be challenged in the getting weary part,
We always say you can quit every day.
Yeah, and start over again.
Quit every day. And then when you get back, you're like, okay.
It's like, I quit.
Until the Lord tells you, okay, that's enough.
Yeah. Which he won't. We tell everybody that we're doing this until Jesus comes. Whether you're with us or not, we're going to do it until Jesus.
Yeah, I love it.
You're gonna have to conform. That's all. That's it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yep.
A quick question. Gil, how has Renee impacted this 39 years of marriage? How has she made it?
Renee has impacted me in a way that it makes me want to live life more, because I always said if it wasn't for her, I would probably be in a garage with just a TV and an easy chair, and that'd be enough for me. You know, she impacts and brings life to my life because of just how her presence is, and it just irradiates and it just brings. I feed off of it. If I have to say it another way, it's you can call me a parasite, but I wouldn't use that word. But it's kind of like it's just something that feeds into me, and she makes it. I always said it like this: she's light. She doesn't bring a heaviness to my life. She makes me want to do it more with her in it.
Wow, that was awesome. And Renee, the same question.
Well, one, he taught me to stop cussing. So he's made me a more kinder, gentler, well thought out person, because I'm a visionary. So I see the vision, let's do it. And Gil's like, what about this? And what about this? And what about this? And so I think that he's brought, if I was a balloon, he is an anchor. He keeps me grounded, and he makes my life more, I feel he gives my life more longevity, because for me, I would probably be, you say we are but a vapor. I would have wasted so much of the valuable things that God has put inside of me into the wrong people, because he has great discernment, and he brings love and joy and peace and excitement into my life, and great sex.
Oh.
See,
now why do you want to mention sex when we about to get off?
See, that save that for later. Y'all come back for that. We'll do that one.
Hey,
see,
no,
see.
Yeah, that's a good way to end it, because that's
I thought we were gonna make it, John. I thought we were gonna make it.
Hey, that's
what I'm gonna say.
See, I told you she brings life. I told you.
Hey, well, we're gonna leave them on that cliffhanger until we get part 2, man. So
yes, absolutely.
We'll talk about sex in your later days.
Yes.
With that candle. Because I'm telling you, I have burned that candle. It's sitting on my side of the bed. Actually, it smells wonderful, and we have.
Thank you. It really does work.
We have burned.
I was thinking about that today. I'm like, sex as an adult without having to get pregnant is phenomenal.
Yes, exactly.
We're doing it because we want to. We ain't trying to have no kids.
So you just really signified. You put a stamp on the fact that there will be a part 2 of Gil and Renee on the podcast, because we got to get into that sex conversation. Because listen, I know we talked about the communication piece, but sex is a major piece.
It is
as well, and that's a struggle. And then now, but I think what's interesting about it is talking about it even in our later days, right? Because of course when we were younger, it was on and popping.
Yeah.
But
that was animal instinct.
How do you deal with sex now, even in your later days? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. We'll gladly do that.
Yeah, we'll dive in.
Literally.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we need to let them go because,
Yeah, for sure.
We appreciate you guys.
I think they got something they need to do.
Yeah. Well, hey, man, we thank you guys, man, so much. Man.
Thank y'all for having me.
Thank you.
For being on the podcast, man, sharing your insights, sharing your story, man, sharing your truth, and just some of the things that you guys have dealt with in your marriage. And, hey, man, kudos to 36 years, man. 39 together.
39 together, 36 married. Yeah.
That is awesome, man. Kudos. Keep living your best life, man. So,
absolutely.
Once again, thank y'all. And hey, Hey, man, look. Wait, I'm your boy Kevin, man. We're gonna leave it right there, man. We're gonna bring that part 2 about that sex life, man, in the later days, baby. So until then, man, I'm your boy Kevin. This is my boo thing,
Tanya.
and this is Couples Connect, man. And we out. Peace.
Yeah.